SBMM. 4 letters we are all too familiar with. The boogeyman that lurks in the shadows of modern multiplayer gaming. Something a vast amount of players despise, and yet developers still keep incorporating it into games. Why is that? It was created as a response to a prevalent pattern of air quotes high-skilled players destroying everyone else in the lobby and ruining the quality of the experience, back when matchmaking was done manually or by ping and location. Since the 2010s, when SBMM first started to become a thing, studios have deployed all manner of systems, algorithms, and metrics to try and create the most balanced experience for players of all skill levels. And if we're being frank, they haven't done a very good job of that. In my experience playing competitive multiplayer games over the years, it seems that not only has matchmaking not improved, it's gotten worse. And I believe this comes down to various fundamental flaws with the concept of skill-based matchmaking, and my personal theory that the purpose of SBMM is to keep players playing through frustration, and does not exist as a system to enrich the gaming experience for everybody. So in this video, I'm going to break down said fundamental flaws with skill-based matchmaking, go in depth on the frustration theory, and offer some solutions for this problem. First off, before we start, I don't like using the term skill in this context because these air quotes high skill players are only at the top because they use crutches like the OP meta weapons and characters, and scumbag techs like dropshotting and camping. Basic spatial knowledge, pattern recognition, and reaction ability, genuine intrinsic skill tends to just as, if not be more effective than the scumbag techs. But for the sake of clarity, I will be using the term skill a lot, though understand that I'm mostly referring to people who rely on these crutches. The core issue with SBMM is that it tries to quantify with numbers something inherently unquantifiable. In this case, a player's skill. Like, what is skill? People know what it looks like when they see it, it's a person's ability to do something, but that is qualitative and relative. You can't quantify it. People don't have a personal stat sheet they can just pull up and see how many points they have into cooking or driving, or in this case, gaming. Skill isn't a liquid or something that we can just pour into a cup and measure its value. It's intangible. It's unquantifiable. It's an impossible task, and yet game studios still try to do it. And that's where we come to the second fundamental flaw of SBMM. Skill-based matchmaking measures outcomes as a marker of a player's skill and not inputs. In the real world, I could show you a lovely cake and claim that I baked it and iced it by hand. Or I could be lying and have bought that nice cake. Both have favorable outcomes, but only one has an exertion of skill in the process. Likewise, if I spent the time and energy mixing, baking, and icing a cake by hand, and the end product looks terrible and tastes terrible, then you would think I am not skilled at baking, and to a degree, yeah. But I am undoubtedly more skilled at it than the person who didn't try and just bought one. We focus too much on outcomes in general and not enough on what goes into the finished product, even though that's where all the skill actually lies. Back to gaming, getting kills and not dying are the results of a player's skill, not indicative of skill itself. The jackass camping in the back with an artillery truck playing a point-and-click adventure has a similar KD as me, who is on the point in operations, with a sniper rifle, quick-scoping people, defending the point and dodging danger by the skin of my teeth. But if we are to measure outcomes, as every SBMM algorithm does, then the artillery truck player will be seen as having a similar skill rating to me, just cause we both have a lot of kills and points at the end of the game. Actually, the artillery truck might have a higher skill rating because they would die less, sitting in their armored bitch wagon at the edge of the map away from combat. In that example, that has and still happens to me a lot in Battlefield 1, how the player got those kills, those points, to the top of the leaderboard, all that is irrelevant, because SBMM algorithms measure outcomes like kills, death, points earned, etc., and not the stuff that went into getting them. My playstyle and behavior are like that of a casual player, but my outcomes are like that of a sweaty basement gremlin. And the matchmaking system has no fucking idea how to balance that. Well, it kinda does. It puts me with other sweaties because MMR is based on outcome and not process, playstyle, and behavior. It's especially flawed given there are other non-skill related factors that go into those outcomes. A scrub player in Call of Duty could be in the right place at the right time, get enough kills for a care package, get an AC-130 out of it, and destroy the enemy team with that. Does that suddenly mean that Noob is a Grandmaster Prestige Diamond rank player? No. It means they got lucky and had a fruitful game. That's it. The third fundamental flaw is that SBMM tries to make every game a perfectly balanced experience where players always experience matches proportional to their skill level, at least in theory, and that's not how reality works. Variance in skill makes games more interesting. As I said before, skill is not quantifiable, and it looks different person to person. It's the same reason ESRB ratings do not apply to online interactions, because online interactions are random, and there's no way to directly control other people's behaviors in a live setting. There's a fairly large margin of error when trying to get humans to operate and behave in a similar way, so making a system that tries to do that is pretty damn hard. Also, I'd argue there are benefits to having players of differing skill levels compete and play in the same space, because that way players can interact with each other and learn from each other about the game and how to play better. If people always play with people that are at their skill level, then the challenge will diminish quickly and the game will become boring. Though everything I just said in that point is dependent on players being empathetic with one another, so take it with a grain of salt. Okay, there are some big reasons why skill-based matchmaking is fundamentally flawed in concept. Now let's talk about how it's flawed in practice. As a player who is at the higher level of play without relying on scumbag tactics, I found myself observing this unique pattern in match quality in many games. Let's say the first game I play that day is really good. Like, me or my team wins, I get a lot of kills and points, and I feel like the enemies are just running into my bullets. Then the next 2 or 3 games would be more of a challenge, with each feeling harder and less enjoyable than the last. Then after that, the next match I play sucks. The match, I can't seem to hit anyone, let alone kill them. The enemy team is the most cracked players imaginable, and they're all in perfect sync, while my team is a bunch of morons who don't know the basic controls. After this horrendous match, or more realistically 2 or 3 of them, I find that the match quality seems to go up again until I get one of those truly great fun games again. Or one where I happen to be on the winning team that's crushing the opposition. I've seen this pattern in match quality as a sine wave, with massive peaks and valleys. Or an elevator that starts at the top, stops at every floor down, then shoots back up to the top again. I think this is because, as a player does well, their matchmaking rating goes up and they get placed in higher and higher MMR brackets, only to get crushed because their actual ability playing the game isn't causation for them winning and getting many kills, which tanks their MMR because now they're performing very poorly not too long after doing well, only for the player's MMR to level out at a lower bracket, then increase again as the player performs very well, now against players of much lower skill levels. These systems don't typically find a sweet spot and keep you there. They're constantly assessing and reassessing player performance. But because of this, and the fact that a player's matchmaking rating doesn't change until a new match is played, matches can feel like this predictable slog, where you have to get through the next 3 or 4 shitty ones just to enjoy the actually fun game you paid for. Another way I've noticed SBMM screw me over, that kinda goes in hand with the first one, is that it seems to balance by adding all individual player matchmaking ratings to a certain maximum. Now, I don't actually know if this is the end result of how any SBMM system works, and I'm sure everyone is different, but adding individual player skill up to 100 is the easiest way I can conceptualize it, and it's how it feels to me as a player. I say this because I've noticed a trend where I get put on a team where everyone else is brain dead, while the enemy team is all around decently competent. And I've been on the other side of it too, where the sweatiest person alive is carrying a bunch of noobs, and my team is all around okay. I've got a great example for this, though it's been a long time, and I don't have the clips for it, so just use your imagination. So way back when Paragon was still a playable game, I hop on one day and just play a game for the fun of it. Just me solo queuing, none of my friends are online. I get into the game, we do the draft and stuff, I pick Aurora, everyone else picks starter characters. I, during this match, was the main character. Despite being off lane, as is normal for that character, I found myself carrying, defending, and pushing all lanes and killing everybody on the enemy team. I guess the enemies collectively were less brain dead than my teammates. I distinctively remember finding myself defending the core from all 3 lanes and 4 of the enemies simultaneously, but I still managed to kill all of them. But as MOBAs go, Paragon in particular, the minions just kept snowballing and won the game for the enemy team, as I can't be in 3 places at once. I think by the end of it, I had like 60 kills and 3 deaths, which is a lot for a MOBA. Moral of the story is, I should not have been matched in that lobby. My ability and understanding the game were far beyond everyone else in that game, yet for some reason I was. During that game though, I did notice my teammates individually seemed less competent than the enemies. Like, the opponents at least knew how to kill minions and protect a tower, my teammates did not. Keeping in mind that my team lost, it seemed to me then and now that if we could represent player skill as a number, then I would be at around 80 and the rest of my team would be 5 each, whereas the enemy team per player is about 20 each. Both sides equal 100 in total, but the disparity between individual skill level is massive when you look at my team. It's not a perfect way of looking at it, but it often feels like that. And I've been in plenty of lobbies or plenty of games where I am the only person competent on my team and the rest is brain dead, while the enemy team is all around decent. And I've even seen it on the enemy team where one guy is hard carrying and the rest are just sniffing paint. So long as the team average MMR is about the same, the algorithm doesn't care how it gets to that, which can mean putting players at the extreme ends of the spectrum on the same team, sometimes facing off against a similar comp, or a team that's much closer to each other and higher in MMR per player. Going in hand with the previous points, a player's matchmaking rating stays with that player indefinitely. If your MMR is, let's say, 70 out of 100, then it's going to stay at 70 until you play a game and it goes up, down, or stays the same. Again, I've noticed this plenty of times in my gaming, that the quality of the game I get when I log off one day is what I get the next day when I log back on. This means that if you're currently at an MMR level where you get matched with all the sweaties, then logging off and waiting till later likely isn't going to work as your matchmaking rating is going to be the same. Players have to see the shitty game through to the end in order to tank their MMR and get back into the bracket that allows them to play a balanced game. Things like Smurf accounts, alt accounts, and elo dumping are all evidence of this phenomena. While in many cases done by pathetic basement gremlins who just want to play against kids, crush them, and win, a lot of times players do this just to play the game like normal, because the SBMM put them against sweaties and they don't want to play through hell just to get back to the actually balanced, enjoyable experience. Some other things that grind my gears are how most modern games purge the lobby and remake it before and after each match. The lobby, as we knew it, doesn't really exist anymore. It's constantly reassessing players' matchmaking ratings to make the most balanced match possible. While this sounds good in theory, it also means matchmaking can take a very long time. Also, it's kind of counterintuitive. Once you find a lobby that's relatively balanced, there's no need to readjust the queue. If anything, SBMM is solving a problem it's also creating. By rating people on their outcomes in games, it's creating artificial class divisions that inaccurately reflect a player's actual ability. Yes, in a balanced lobby, some players will do better than others. Some will win, and some will lose. That's just the nature of competitive multiplayer. It has to and will end like that one way or another. If a lobby were truly perfectly balanced, each player would have to get the exact same number of kills, deaths, and points, and the game would have to end in a draw. That doesn't sound very fun, and it's also not how humans work. On the note of balancing lobbies, it should be the first sin of matchmaking to auto-balance teams during a live game. To my knowledge, most modern games do not do this anymore, which is great, but it's still stupid that it even existed to begin with. I have this clip from Battlefield 1 that shows this perfectly. I was the main character again. I was carrying in this massive supply drop. And like the Aurora game in Paragon, I shouldn't have been put in this lobby of noobs. Yet the game's SBMM likely put me here to air quotes balance the match by putting an elephant on one side of the scale. Anyways, the game is like 99-1 and I'm the reason for it. I captured each crate, held the point, and killed everyone myself. My teammates weren't doing that much. I did realize that I was doing a little too well and tried to scale things back, but it didn't really work. Anyways, look at this. I'm on the German team, I die and respawn, and all of a sudden, I'm on the Russian team, right before the game ends. Because Battlefield 1 auto-balances during the game, and the only player in the lobby that could balance out me is me, the game snuck me onto the losing side at the last second and made me hand myself the L. Which is even stupider now that I think about it, because that undoubtedly messes with my MMR, and if anything would put me in a lower bracket than where I should be as the game ended with a loss. Which would then repeat the same terrible matchup that caused this to happen in the first place. By this point, we've seen that skill-based matchmaking doesn't work well in theory or in practice, yet it still persists. Why is this? Simple answer first, these are teething problems and developers are still trying to perfect these matchmaking systems. However, as I'll explain later, a lot of these problems don't exist when there is no MMR and players can easily leave and join games until they find a lobby or server they like. Instead, I'd like to propose a theory as to why SBMM still persists, despite being generally unliked. SBMM exists under the guise that the game wants to keep you playing as long as possible. It is modeled after that sentiment and thus is designed to keep you matchmaking and playing constantly. I believe it is the goal of the matchmaking systems to force players into unfun and unfair matches, so that they get frustrated and actually end up playing the game longer, in search of that blessed good game they can finally end off on. As I mentioned in my video about dopamine, frustration is actually the physical manifestation of dopamine in action. And if you know a positive outcome is possible and has happened before, then good luck trying to get yourself to stop trying. You will likely keep searching and trying until you get that outcome you want, or the brain straight up burns through all the dopamine it has available. In the context of gaming, I think these matchmaking systems are intentionally designed to give you that juicy, sweet, fun game early on, then take it away from you and put you against the sweaties, making you doubly frustrated, one because you're against sweaty players, and silly monkey brain likes to compete, but also because now you're actively wanting that good game as you've had it before, searching for it and craving it so you can end off on a good one, or achieve the satisfaction of actually playing the fun version of the game you spent money on. If game lobbies were all around good, then you'd play your fill and get off content. But if it rattles you up, you enter an emotional state of frustration, and thus aren't thinking clearly. Even if you're physically or mentally tired, it's hard to put a game down and not go back to it because it's robbed you of that leisure activity catharsis. My evidence in all this being actually playing video games and living it, but also the Call of Duty SBMM white paper, which breaks down the process COD uses to matchmake in Modern Warfare 3 and Black Ops 6. Among other things, this paper reveals that with no SBMM, the top 10%, the sweaties, favor it and stay in matchmaking longer. Conversely, with super strict matchmaking criteria, the inverse is true, where the other 90% favored it and stayed in matchmaking longer, while the 10% were more likely to quit. That sounds great. If ultra strict SBMM makes games more enjoyable for 90% of players, then why am I not experiencing that in game? Why does all multiplayer divide into this sine wave seesaw pattern of highs and lows? By this point, the answer should be obvious. You know, when getting Black Ops 1 clips for this video, I noticed that the quality of games with its matchmaking system was basically the same as that of more recent CODs. There were fun balanced games, and then there were games with parties full of sweaties that would always win. Keep in mind that Black Ops 1 on PS3 in the year 2026 is a very skewed dataset, as mostly sweaties still play old games and there are like 10 lobbies in total. When the game was alive and had thousands of players, you were spoiled for choice. But all that is to say that modern COD, and indeed most modern multiplayer games, haven't solved the problem they've been trying to solve. And while I say that the quality of matches was the same, the thing about an older game like Black Ops 1 is that I can just leave and find a new game whenever I want. I'm more likely to find a game that I like by just tweaking my preferences and rolling the dice, as opposed to being beholden to an invisible matchmaking rating. The goal with matchmaking and the current culture of gaming as a whole is ultimately retention, not quality of experience. And that's something we as players have overlooked. The developers really only care about the experience of gameplay to a point, so long as players keep playing enough to be tempted into buying microtransactions. All that said and done, I believe there are things developers can do to make matchmaking better, should they grow a conscience. With all the talk about SBMM, there is something missing from the conversation, and increasingly missing from many modern games. That being systems for players to use to self-govern their matchmaking. In Battlefield 2042 and 6, the traditional server browser is gone and only exists for the weird Portal games. If you want to play a normal match on a specific map, you'll have to tweak the queue filters and get lucky. In Call of Duty, game modes can be selected individually, but long gone are the days where the game told you how many active games there were in that game mode, and sometimes if matchmaking takes forever, you may throw in a game you didn't have selected, or willingly choose to add games you otherwise don't want to play just to actually find a match. Oh, and you also can't vote for maps anymore, so have fun playing the same 4 back to back. Being able to manual search and choose games is great, because it allows players to play what they want on what map they want, when they want to, assuming it's available, and also makes it easier to leave and find a new game when this one doesn't vibe well. Yeah, on that note, if you're not having fun in a game, just leave. It's simple. It was simple in the before times. But now with MMR branded to a player, you basically have to play the shitty match in order to drop elo and have fun again. It's not like how it was with ping-based matchmaking where you leave a game, wait a few seconds for the spot to fill, and then re-queue. Yeah, it's a dice roll whether the next lobby is fun or not, but you can keep doing that over and over again until you actually find a good lobby or quit. Now with player matchmaking ratings, you can't really do that. If you leave and re-queue, you'll be thrown in the exact same lobby you just left, a different lobby of similar sweatiness, or spend an eternity in matchmaking. Ironically, I turned to exclusively using server browsing in Battlefield 1 and 5 because it circumvented the SBMM systems those games had. And I noticed a significant increase in my enjoyment of matches over time, along with those matches being all around more balanced than if I were to queue via quick match. I stopped playing Modern Warfare 2 in Battlefield 6 mainly because the matchmaking kept putting me in sweaty lobbies, after it saw that I had decent reflexes and basic hand-eye coordination skills. Also, shout out to games like Apex Legends and the Master Chief Collection for banning players mid-game, even in the casual playlist. Fuck them. It's so disconnected from reality that these studios are banning players from playing their game in order to get players to stay in games and play longer. Quite frankly, that should be illegal, and if having a full lobby is really that important for the team, just put in a bot until a new player joins the game. If we're being honest, the most useful thing other players do in a team game is absorb bullets on behalf of each other. If developers were really interested in preserving the quality of the game experience, then they should have better developed single players and offline multiplayer game modes and bots, which was normal before internet multiplayer was a thing. I'd also say games could implement separate matchmaking options for either really strict SBMM or no SBMM at all. That way players at least know what they're getting into, but I feel like the game/server browser achieves the same goal anyways. Now listen, matchmaking for things like parties, best connection, and in-game preferences is hard. I'm not gonna touch that. Except for the fact that games like Black Ops 1 already solved this problem by letting you adjust the matchmaking proximity, and by having playlists like Mercenary that ban parties, Express that bans Second Chance and Ghost, and Barebones that banned everything except the gun in your hand, or some variation of that. This problem was already solved. Just pick the fucking playlist with the matchmaking preferences you want and go. The most infuriating in all of this, and perhaps the most fatal of flaws with skill-based matchmaking, is that every single skill-based matchmaking system, in every single game that I've played and know of, uses metrics based on player outcomes instead of inputs. When you look at these algorithms, they always use things like kills, deaths, eliminations, objective time, points, etc., which are all things that are not one-to-one representations of player skill. As I've said before, that is unquantifiable, and other things aside from player input can influence those actions. If you throw a lucky frag on B flag right as the entire enemy team caps it, does that warrant placement against the top 10% of sweaties? No! Like I said in previous examples, me, who plays the objective, is supporting my team and gets a lot of kills, is different than the guy sitting on the edge of the map in artillery truck. But SBMM looks at our scores and thinks we're the same person. If we're going to keep SBMM, then it should be based on inputs and not outcomes, as that is more indicative of a player's skill level and ability. It's hard to evaluate an individual's playstyle and judge their skill accordingly en masse with an algorithm. Maybe AI could do that now, but the most effective way to do that is to have a lot of human beings watch and rate the player's gameplay, And while that is essentially streaming, there are a lot of problems that could arise from such a system, chiefly that it'd be very inefficient and can't react in real time. So I propose that SBMM metrics be based in part or in a whole on things like game settings. Despite being quality of life settings, field of view, sensitivity, control scheme, and aim assist all have an advantageous component to them. A wider field of view lets you see more of the world, higher sensitivity lets you move and react faster, different control schemes let you do certain actions or techniques better, and aim assist lets you snap and hold on to targets better. Sweaty players often have near max FOV and sensitivity and use bumper jumper. I keep my sensitivity at like 5 or 6 out of a scale of 20, use the default control scheme, and I turn my FOV up like 5 or 10 above the default if I feel I need to. Even if I had all the skill in the world, I physically cannot react to getting shot as fast as someone with max settings. 5 sensitivity cannot do a full rotation as fast as 20. This solution solves the core issue with SBMM. It is a quantifiable metric that's based on inputs rather than outcomes. I think a lobby packed with max sense, max FOV bumper jumpers going against each other is a better representation of the high skill ceiling and similar ability, as all these people approach playing the game in a similar way. Just as people who use the default controls play in the 4 to 6 range of sensitivity should be grouped together. You'll look at the kill cam and see your killer isn't tweaking off bath salts, and see that how they are playing is very similar to how you are. Games can even incorporate metrics like most used weapon or character choice. Wait and see what the meta slave weapons or characters are, then group players who choose those items more often with each other. I don't think this is the be-all end-all solution, as I'm sure people will come up with ways to spoof their settings to circumvent it. Best approach would probably be input-based SBMM first, that also factors in some outcome metrics as well, with the input side of things being based on an aggregate of multiple settings metrics. An example would record player sensitivity value, their control scheme, or if custom placement of inputs on specific buttons, player FOV value, are things like aim assist, rotation, and slowdown enabled, plus performance outcomes over the past 5 games. Also, developers could just incorporate gameplay balancing features into the game itself. Great example, MW3 2011 has support streaks that don't reset on death, counter kill streaks, and help the team. It's kinda hard to be sweaty when you're EMP'd and have no HUD and can't call in kill streaks for a minute. Also, we could take a page out of the good COD games like Black Ops 1 and have separate playlists that streamline the matchmaking process. Ping-based or not, fast matchmaking in games or not, parties, no parties, perks and streaks, no perks and streaks. The process was simple. It's probably an if-else statement in the code, not all this complicated calculus and statistics. Or, as I'll reiterate, just no SBMM at all and let players self-govern their play. Skill-based matchmaking was created because a minority of sweaty basement trolls kept ruining the game for everybody. Since that time, in my experience, I have not seen a change. If anything, skill-based matchmaking has streamlined that experience and made it more common and predictable. SBMM feels like bullshit because it only measures outcomes as its assessment of you, ignoring the inputs that went into it. We humans can tell. Just like with credit scores, college degrees, industry certs, work experience requirements, and generally everything capitalism, we know that the end result is not a good judge of character. It sucks, but it doesn't have to. I have presented multiple solutions in this video, them being: use settings and inputs as matchmaking criteria instead of outputs, implement systems for players to self-govern their play like server browsing, or just don't have a complicated matchmaking system to begin with. We definitely have the capacity to make fair, balanced, and enjoyable game experiences for everyone. Some of what I've mentioned is how things were before. All that we're missing is the will to do so, both from the developers and the players. Players need to understand that sometimes you have bad games. Shocking, I know. And that your behavior impacts how other people respond. Meaning, if you find yourself destroying the enemy team, consider nerfing yourself by playing in a more challenging way or using worse items. It makes the game more fun for yourself and everyone else. And developers need to understand that min-maxing for the 10% sweatiest players in your audience is going to lead to bad game design, player dissatisfaction, and long-term profit fall-off. I hope this video serves as inspiration for those who envision a world where solutions to problems do not become problems themselves. And chiefly, any game developers out there who want to make games that are fun to play. Also, if you want to see more, there's an unlisted video linked in the description. That's live-ish gameplay of me playing Modern Warfare 2, in which I play 5 games back to back to show increasing MMR leading to more sweaty games in real time. As always, play is power, so go play something. See ya.